Hello friends, welcome. Friends, today in the morning I saw this article in the newspaper which talks about Reliance Jio proposing exclusive communication network for first responders using 700 MHz, challenging competitors in 5G rollout. Now, what is this article all about? Let's go and deep dive on what this article says. This article says that Reliance Jio has proposed that to the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India that it can set up an exclusive communication network for first responders, including police and entities like railways, if the remaining 700 MHz band is reserved for telecom services. Now, what is the importance of this statement and why Reliance Jio is talking about reserving the remaining 700 MHz spectrum for telecom services? This is important to understand. Now, friends, I have already made a lot of video about this topic. You might have already seen it. But since this is a new thing which has come up and Reliance Jio now exclusively focusing on 700 MHz spectrum and expanding the 10 MHz of 700 which it already has to a larger quantum, what is the need for it? Because in the industry there is a perception, like what Bharti has been saying, that they have plenty of spectrum in the low frequency band as well as in the high frequency band to offer 5G services and they don't need 700 MHz spectrum. Now, why Reliance needs 700 MHz spectrum? Why they want to get additional spectrum? This is the point of discussion, and I thought, though I have done a lot of videos on this topic, I want to explain to you in simple terms the meaning of low frequency band and 700 MHz band for Reliance. As well as for other operators like Bharti, they can't live without low frequency band spectrum for 5G, without which 5G services in India is going to be a failure. Let me tell you this word, failure, note it, right? 5G services in India is going to be a failure from a mobile handset point of view. Right? Not fixed wireless devices like the Jio, Air Fiber and all kinds of services which are being offered using 5G to enhance broadband connectivity in the country. Those services can still get deployed. But if you really want to experience good quality 5G services at the handset level, you can't just live with 10 MHz of 700 MHz spectrum in the low frequency band. For Bharti, the situation is much more dire. Reliance is better off because they at least have 700 MHz spectrum, which is 10 MHz to start with. And they have already created a pan-India standalone 5G services, which is quite different from a non-standalone 5G services. So for the viewers, let me explain the difference between standalone and a non-standalone 5G services. Standalone 5G services mean that the 5G network is distinct from the 4G network. Means there is no interconnection between these two networks. They are different, they use different frequency band. Whereas in case of a non-standalone 5G, the frequency bands are interchangeable. Means, let's say if you are using a 5G services and the 5G services is not available because of lack of coverage, then you will fall back on 4G. That's how the non-standalone network works. Whereas in case of standalone network, the intent is to have a carpet-to-carpet 5G coverage in parallel with 4G. Right? So if you are on 5G, you will remain in 5G and you don't have to go and land on 4G at any point of time, even for voice services. Today, there is a slight difference. The voice services are offered in 4G, but tomorrow, as the NR voice, which is the new radio voice technology, is going to come up, Reliance is already testing that. Then for voice also you are going to start using 5G. Then you don't have to go to 4G for any kind of service requirement. So that is the gist of it. Now let's look at the quantum of spectrum Reliance has in various spectrum band and what is the need for Reliance to look at 700 megahertz band as an additional spectrum for expanding its already available 10 megahertz to a larger block size. That is what is the article talking about, right? And for that, Reliance Jio is willing to create a pan-India isolated, separate, exclusive network for the government service providers like police and railways. Now let's go to the 700 megahertz band first. The 700 megahertz band, if you look at this block of which is the band plan in front of you, it is color coded, and every block represents a different service provider. For example, the 10 megahertz block which you see, this is now, which is in front of you, where you can see my mouse, right? This is for defense. Then we have railways here, and then this is the red block, which is Reliance Jio. This is the block of 5 megahertz, which is currently under discussion in TRAI to be given to railway, and this is for BSNL. BSNL is launching 4G services in the 700 megahertz band. Now if I choose a filter and do a filter with Reliance Jio, you will see that out of 45 megahertz of spectrum, this is a total which is 10 megahertz of spectrum currently is held by Reliance. So what Reliance is now saying is that this additional backend spectrum, let me just do a filtering with backend. So you will see that this 5 megahertz of backend spectrum, which is currently under debate to be given to railways, they want this spectrum to be used for mobile services, which means that they are wanting to expand their existing 700 megahertz band, that is 10 megahertz already they have, an additional 5 megahertz to make a 15 megahertz of block. That's the whole intent, right? Now let's look at the 800 megahertz spectrum band. Now in 800 megahertz spectrum band, friends, if you look at this band plan in front of you, which is color coded, and again if you look at the total quantum spectrum is shown on the rightmost part of your screen, you will notice that if I do a filtering on Reliance Jio here, you will find that Reliance Jio has 10 megahertz in most of the circles. In some circles they have even 15 megahertz like in Mumbai. So they already have 10 megahertz of 800 megahertz band in all circles. Now the question can come, why do they need additional spectrum in 700 when they already have 10 megahertz of spectrum in 800 megahertz band? Can't they combine these two blocks together and make a combined block of 20 megahertz and run 5G there? Which typically we do. No, this is called carrier aggregation, where a spectrum is combined with another block of spectrum, so that from an electronic point of view, from the electronics point of view, both these bands, which are disjointed bands, look as if that they are one. Right? So they can do that very easily with the 800 megahertz and the 700 megahertz. And 800 megahertz, there is already lot of spectrum available which can be acquired in the forthcoming auction. You look at this, all this, let me do a filtering based with backend, and you will see the quantum of spectrum that is already available. You see so much amount of spectrum is available, 10 megahertz in AP, 10 megahertz in Bihar, in 6.25 megahertz in Delhi, and then we have 10 megahertz in UP. So there are a lot of spectrum available, right, which can be acquired. And in the process, Reliance Jio can expand their existing spectrum block of 800 megahertz from the existing 10 megahertz block to additional spectrum which they can acquire in the forthcoming auction. So why aren't they doing that? Why are they focusing on 700 megahertz band? Why are they not looking at 800 megahertz band? Is the question that we have to answer, and that is pretty important, and that's the whole purpose of this video. Now let's look at the technical diagram in front of you, how spectrum bands are combined with each other. So if you look at this particular part of the picture, and I'll take my pen for making the explanation better. So we have 700 megahertz band on the top. So this is the block of 700 megahertz band. Then we have the 800 megahertz band below, and then we have the 3500 megahertz band which is below, and with a band gap between these two blocks which is pretty high, which has been shown here, because the frequency domain, the frequency difference between the 800 and the 3500 megahertz is pretty high compared to 700 and 800. Now as I told you that Reliance has got 10 megahertz here in 700, 10 megahertz in 800, And since both the spectrum block can be combined, just like we already combined 700 with 3500 to offer 5G services, today we are doing so. We are combining 700 with 3500 in order to give a seamless one single block of 5G services to be available to the handset. They are not disjointed. That is called carrier aggregation. Most handset will support that. And how we are doing that? We are basically taking the signal emanating out of the antenna and just taking it like this and putting it into a combiner. 700 also will come like this and will go to a single signal combiner. Now this single signal combiner which you see here, what it does, it basically takes the RF signals which are different in frequency domain, and then through a filter it combines and gives the integrated signal which can get processed by the electronics of the base station and the handset. Now, why can't the same thing can be done for 700 as well as for 800? Because these things can also be combined and sent to the signal combiner for integration. Why can't we do that? The problem is that this combiner that you see is very efficient when the bands which it is combining are separated out in the frequency domain with a high band gap. If the band gap is high, then this combiner works very efficiently without any loss. But if the band gap, which you can see between the 700 and 800 megahertz, which is very low, then the combination or the integration of these two different bands is not very efficient. There will be a loss of around 2 dB. Now 3 dB loss is 50% loss of coverage. So 2 dB loss will be a significant loss of coverage. Now why do you want the 700 and the 800 megahertz band to be used for mobile services? Because these bands penetrate indoors. And this band 3500 megahertz, which is kind of deployed for 5G, does not penetrate indoor efficiently. Now most of the time you, me or anybody else will be either at your home or in the office and using mobile services. So penetration of indoor is extremely important. But you do not complain if your 4G services like in 800 megahertz band is not available or is congested, because you can do a Wi-Fi offload. In voice, if there is a problem in your house and you are not getting coverage, then you can typically use a Wi-Fi calling feature and you can do a Wi-Fi offload. And therefore, the congestion that you see on your 4G services in 800 megahertz band or in 900 megahertz band can be easily resolved by doing this offload. Now, the problem here is two-front, as I explained, that 700 megahertz band is an isolated band with 10 megahertz of spectrum, can't be combined with 800 megahertz band because it will lead to loss of coverage, and therefore the utility of this low frequency band is going to be useless. You will not be able to penetrate indoor because if you lose 40% of your network coverage. So what you do is you have to separate these two bands and make them independent, which means that 800 megahertz will be used for 4G and the 700 megahertz band will be used for 5G exclusively. It can't be used for anything else. Now, fortunately for 4G, as I told you that you can do a Wi-Fi offload if your network is congested. For 700 megahertz 5G, you can't do a Wi-Fi offload. Why can't you do a Wi-Fi offload in 5G? The reason you can't do a Wi-Fi offload in 5G because you use 5G for different kinds of capabilities which are not available in 4G. For example, lower latency, all kind of slicing of application, which I'm going to explain to you, which can't be offered using Wi-Fi. Means all kinds of 5G specific application which can be delivered into the handset cannot be offered in Wi-Fi offload. Similarly, 5G voice. That is, a voice is going to be a premium voice that cannot be offered in Wi-Fi offload because that voice services is going to run on a specific frame which is 5G specific. Therefore, you cannot do Wi-Fi offload and therefore you need more capacity in the 700 MHz band to support this services. And let me explain through a different slide which is right in front of you and you will understand what I am basically talking about. This slide shows an integrated 5G pipe. You can see this fat pipe here. This pipe is an integrated 5G pipe. Now in this 5G pipe, you are going to run general internet services, because general internet services means those services which are going to run on the ability of moving on their own, which is called best effort services. Best effort. Now best effort services are internet services where the packet loss can happen anytime if the network faces congestion. For example, if the pipe, this particular pipe which is shown in green color, if there is a packet which is moving here and that packet experiences congestion because this pipe becomes too congested, then your packet can be lost and your quality of services can be compromised. Whereas if there are pipes which are, you call slices in the name of 5G, and if these slices are running in the same 5G pipe, these slices are going to get priority in the network. That's how the network is designed. All these services called slicing services offered in the handset, they do not land up into the internet. These general internet slices will land up, the traffic is going to go to the internet and it will be vulnerable to attacks, to congestion, security problems. This traffic is going to have those kind of problems. However, if you are going to remain on the operator's network and use these slices which are going to get prioritized and run within the operator network, and it's going to be offered through fast lane within the same 5G pipe which I showed you here, these are going to flow into the operator's intranet, not internet. And how it is going to be beneficial? Let's say if you want a secure banking service and there is a server located here of, let's say, HDFC Bank, then you don't want the traffic into the server flowing through the internet. You don't want the traffic to go like this. You want the traffic to the server, HDFC server, go from the operator's internet network, directly land into the server of the bank. In that way, your services can be secured, protected from any kind of interference and attack. And also, the quality of the service can be ensured because it does not land up into the internet and it does not follow the pattern of best effort services. And that is what the advantage of 5G services is, and that's why the 5G services cannot be offloaded into a Wi-Fi network, because you need end-to-end connection. Once you land in Wi-Fi, then it goes into the path of general internet. You need to remain in the internet in the intranet in order to have those 5G specific services. Now the problem is that, assume that you have a 5G pipe and this pipe is pretty narrow, because this 5G pipe is going to land up into your house, because it has to get into your house or into your office. Therefore, in order for this 5G pipe to penetrate inside your house, inside your room, inside your office, it has to be in a low frequency band. It cannot be at a high frequency band. Though in high frequency band, you have got plenty of capacity. That capacity is of no use. Absolutely useless, because that is going to be used only for fixed wireless devices which are going to expand broadband connectivity. That's a separate kind of services. But in the mobile, you have to rely on low frequency band. Now you will understand that the low frequency band which Reliance has is only 700 megahertz band, 10 megahertz capacity. Now the 10 megahertz of capacity is going to be grossly insufficient to able to support all kinds of services which are going to flow into this pipe. This pipe is going to be pretty narrow, because this pipe is indoors within your house and going to be running only on low frequency band, especially 700. 800 you can't use, as I explained to you, that because 800 and 700 can't be combined without any loss of efficiency and coverage. Now imagine that this 10 megahertz of pipe is going to run what kind of services? Voice services, internet services, general internet services, as well as these slicing services, all together in small 10 megahertz. Imagine the kind of constraint this particular pipe will have. right? It is going to get choked because tomorrow all the 800 megahertz subscribers slowly will migrate into 5G, and they will need the low frequency band because they already have the 800 megahertz band in experience in 4G. Because 4G you already have the 800 megahertz band and you are already facing congestion, tremendous amount of congestion that you are facing, and you can take some respite by Wi-Fi offload, which you cannot take in 700 megahertz band. Now you know why 5G low frequency band like 700 megahertz is absolutely necessary. You can't live with just 10 megahertz. Ideally, you should have how much? 30 megahertz of spectrum in 700 megahertz or 900 megahertz or 600 megahertz per operator. Without this low frequency band, 5G services is useless. If you have a mobile phone and if you are running on the road and you are getting 200 Mbps, download speed on your mobile while on your road, that speed is useless, absolutely useless, because services on mobile phones while you are on the road doesn't need that kind of capacity. What you need is adequate capacity and the ability to run these kind of services which I was talking about, because these kind of services is going to make your voice quality better. Today the voice quality is pathetic. You will be able to run those slicing applications which you cannot run in case of 4G services. Now do you understand why 5G in India is in a pathetic situation? And let me go to my tool to explain to you what kind of mess that we have created for ourselves. Now let's go to the 700 megahertz band for a better understanding. Now in the 700 megahertz band, what has happened today is, this also I have been speaking a lot, so many years I've been speaking this, nobody is listening, right? Especially the regulators and the policymakers are not listening to me. That is very clear. Now BSNL, which we are focused on, and we are spending huge amount of money creating capex, generating capex for BSNL. Out of the budget, 1 lakh crores of rupees of capex is being spent on BSNL to revive BSNL. But BSNL is doing 4G in 700 megahertz band. 700. This is the 10 megahertz of 700 megahertz which BSNL has been given. And what is the problem with this? In this band, this is a 5G band. In India, nobody except Reliance is using this band, that too for 5G, not for 4G. And globally, most of the players are using this particular band for 5G. They are not using for 4G. Very few players are using. And the handset support for 4G in the 700 megahertz band is pretty low. Means you will not get handsets which are below 4,000 rupees in the market. Those handsets which are available with the 700 megahertz support are going to be 10,000 rupees and above. And there will be hardly any handsets which are going to be available below 10,000, 4,000. You will not get anything. Now imagine BSNL launching 4G services in 700 megahertz band, how they will be able to get their subscribers who are generally going to be low-end subscribers, because they will go for BSNL services in order to enjoy low-end services, low-price services. So they cannot afford high-end handset. So this locking this band for 4G is a complete waste of national, asset. I would say national. Instead of that, what you could have done, you could have released this spectrum and you could have given BSNL spectrum in the 800 megahertz band. Now in the 800 megahertz band, if you see here, how much spectrum is available? Let me just do another filtering on backend. And you will see that in the next round of auction, we have got 10, 10, 6.25. May not be in all circles, you have got spectrum available, but at least 5 megahertz is available in many circles, except for few, 1, 2, and 3 circles. So BSNL could easily have deployed 4G in the 800 megahertz band without any problem. Now what will happen? This particular block of spectrum is going to go waste. Nobody can take this spectrum. Reliance Jio will also not take this spectrum. The reason is that, let's assume that Reliance Jio wants to deploy 5G and they will like to move all their 4G subscribers from the 800 megahertz band to the 700 megahertz if they are not able to expand their spectrum beyond 10 megahertz in 700. And then finally, as you move forward, they will take 10 megahertz of spectrum in 800 megahertz band to have an integrated block of 20 megahertz in 800 and move all their 5G services in 800. No problem. Theoretically possible, but the issue is that they are going to face the similar handset issue in the 700 megahertz for 4G, which BSNL is going to face. So for Reliance also, expanding the 800 megahertz band is of no value. They should be expanding the 700 megahertz band for 5G, and by the time they go in future, the 5G services in the 700 megahertz band will become affordable, because internationally everybody is using 700 for 5G. So expanding and spending so much amount of money in 800 megahertz band and gathering another 10 megahertz band spectrum in 800 is going to be of no use for Reliance, and that is why Reliance is focused on expanding their 700 megahertz spectrum. Now let's answer another question. Can Bharti take this 10 megahertz or 700, because Bharti's spectrum in 900 megahertz is also very constrained. Let's look at the 900 megahertz spectrum map, and you will understand, if I do a filtering based on Bharti, you will understand that in 900 megahertz, Bharti has very low amount of spectrum in most of the circles, 5, 5, 5, 10, some circles in 14. Now some people may say, oh, let's convert this to 5G. How can you do that? You have to create a parking spot of 5 megahertz at least for 4G, so that you don't lose your 4G subscriber as you make the transition. For example, let's say if you are renovating your house, your room where your bedroom is getting renovated, what do? You get out of your bedroom and move to a different room till the time your room is getting renovated. You don't sleep in your bedroom as it is getting renovated, right? Similarly, what Bharti will have to do is that it has to carve out a block of 5 megahertz for 4G. Otherwise, all the 4G subscribers cannot be moved to high frequency band, because the quality of the 4G services will get very compromised. And if you are going to extract 5 megahertz from these chunk, imagine that how much spectrum that you have to available for 5G deployment. 5 megahertz if you take it for 4G, you have got nothing, right? So Bharti has two options. Either it basically integrates its existing spectrum with the vacant spectrum. See, there are a lot of spectrum now vacant which is available for auction. So the expansion, it can expand in many circles spectrum like 16.4, but these are not very great circles. Like for example, Delhi, it's a mess, right? It's only 6.8. Gujarat is only 5.8, right? Mumbai is only 5.8. Now, and most of the unimportant circles, they can actually expand and create a block which is 10 megahertz and more, and still there will be a problem, because for 5G standalone you need at least 10 megahertz to start with. You cannot start with 5 megahertz because of the problem which I have expanded. So the Bharti will have an option to get 800 megahertz spectrum. Let's keep the 900 for 4G and then do some 5G in the 800 megahertz spectrum. In some of the circles like AP, where we have got 10 megahertz, so let me just do a filtering on availability. So you'll see here you have got AP, you have Bihar, you have got 10 megahertz, then you have got UP East 10 megahertz, and then in some of the circles Bharti already has 5 megahertz of spectrum. So let me just join that spectrum also. So if you look at in Maharashtra, it will be able to do 10 megahertz. In MP, it will be able to do 10 megahertz. So there are some circles like AP, Bihar, Maharashtra, MP, UP East. Bharti will be able to create a contiguous blocks of 10 megahertz. In some of the circles, some of the other circles, it can just squeeze in, right? And if I take RCOM also in the picture, if the government is able to resolve the RCOM the spectrum which is getting locked by RCOM in the 800 megahertz band, imagine that what kind of spectrum you will be able to get. Because RCOM, because of the bankruptcy, we have a problem. That spectrum can also be extracted. So this problem can be resolved. But there is no solution to this, and I'll explain to you. Practically it is impossible. Why? I'll give you the reason. The reason it is not going to be possible for Bharti to take spectrum in 800 megahertz band is because of the auction rule. As soon as Bharti starts to bid in this block, in this spectrum band, it will have to face Reliance Jio on unequal bidding, because Reliance Jio is an incumbent operator, so they can bid 1.25 and Bharti has to bid the full 10 megahertz or the full block of spectrum, whatever is less. So Reliance Jio can actually block Bharti's ability to get 800 megahertz by just bidding one slice of 1.25 megahertz in all the circles, and that will result in 5,000 crores of outflow for Reliance. And in the process, Reliance Jio can block this band for Bharti to acquire. So you can imagine the kind of mess that we have created because of our auction rules, and Bharti will not be able to take this particular block of spectrum. So neither it will go to Bharti nor it will go to Reliance, because Reliance will only bid if there is a risk that Bharti will take this spectrum, because they don't want any competition. Nobody will like, it's quite natural, right? What happened in 2015 in one of the videos I'm going to show you, when Tata and Reliance were bidding unequal blocks in 800 megahertz band, and in the process Reliance Jio lost Delhi, Maharashtra and Mumbai because Tata acquired one block or two block of spectrum in this spectrum, and Reliance Jio had to bid full block of spectrum in order to get access to this band, because they were a new player. That was how the auction rules were designed. So because of this problem, Bharti will have no other option. So only option for Bharti is to go to 600 megahertz spectrum when it is open for auction. Now I think you probably understand what is the problem that we are facing as a nation. As a nation, we actually have screwed it all up. We have screwed it in such a way that the low frequency band, which was supposed to be managed properly, is completely screwed up and messed up. If you look at the 800 megahertz band, if I do a filtering with RCOM, so much amount of spectrum is blocked, right? In 800 megahertz spectrum band, right? And then if I do a 900 megahertz spectrum, let's do a 700 megahertz spectrum, and if I just take BSNL and then take government, then take railway, and then take vacant, imagine the kind of spectrum. 30 megahertz are blocked by players who do not belong to telecom industry, right? And then if we do a 900 megahertz spectrum, and if I do a filtering in this particular spectrum using Aircel, using BSNL, using government, using railways, using vacant is anyway available, so let's take the vacant out, and you can see that RCOM, and you can see that so much amount of spectrum is wasted. See the spectrum, so much amount of spectrum is wasted, which can't be used. So either we are wasting spectrum. No, there's some spectrum is not wasted because BSNL unlicensed is for 2G services, but still there is a sizable spectrum, though this band is much more clearer. So what I'm trying to say, friends, now you understand. Let's get back to this article, right, which I spoke about in the beginning itself. Why Reliance Jio wants 700 megahertz spectrum to be expanded further in order to create more capacity. If they don't, then even these slicing services, there will be another problem, and my video is going a little longer, but I will like it to continue like this, because there is one more important point which I have missed out, is that if there is only 10 megahertz of spectrum, let's assume that there is only 10 megahertz of spectrum, and you are living with 10 megahertz of spectrum, and you don't get any additional spectrum, let's say in the 700 megahertz band, then what will happen? Then you will not be able to offer these slicing services. Why? Because the best effort general internet, right, will get squeezed into a very small pipe. Because if you are going to, let's assume that your 60% of your traffic is going to get either fast lane or being consumed because of slicing, because there is a network management slice which is 5%, and you will reserve at least 50% of the block of your pipe for this slicing. So your best effort internet is going to basically have only 50%, means 5 megahertz. Imagine that, you have voice, you have got the slicing, they are occupying 5 or 6 megahertz of spectrum. That is also going to be grossly insufficient. So what will happen? The net neutrality people will come jumping around. They will say that you are offering fast lanes, to drive all these premium services, and you have squeezed our best internet efforts services to a very smaller pipe, which may be 2.5 megahertz. So the net neutrality rules are going to get violated. Only way to prevent this argument, to circumvent this argument, is to expand the capacity of the low frequency pipe to such an extent, 30 megahertz, so that at least 15 megahertz is available for this general internet, and 15 megahertz is available for all these services. Then only it makes sense, otherwise it does not make any sense. You imagine the kind of importance 5G has for low frequency spectrum. There is a complete misnomer that we have deployed 5G in India. No, we have not deployed 5G in India because we have messed up with the low frequency spectrum. I have written so many articles about this, and I am very passionate about this topic, because India is not going to get any advantage of 5G network as far as handsets is concerned, because most of the time people are indoors, they are not outdoors. And that's where this is going to be a problem unless you expand this capacity going forward to a very large quantum, which typically if you go to US, Verizon, and if you go to China, operators will have 30 megahertz of spectrum in a single spectrum band, not joining spectrum bands, with each other. Okay, friends? So I hope that you have understood. We have already crossed 35 minutes. This video has become pretty long, but it was important for me to basically do this video again and again, so that people realize where we stand. So thank you for your time, and I will come back to you with a new video next time. Thank you very much.